Happy to have everyone here. I thought 2020 was over, but I think it's like the 14th month of 2020 at this point. So, it is what it is here. So I'll share my screen, get things rolling on this. So I'd like to thank our division participants, myself, Crystal White, I think she's on here, Rosie Newman, Todd Callan. That's our executive team. And then Jen Short is the District 1 rep. Lucy Chalian is the last year's chair. And then we have our community liaison, Laura Paul, and social committee chair, Michael Albrecht. If you have any questions, you'd like to get involved, learn more about what we do here, how we do it, please reach out to any of us. You can either message us directly on this Zoom call or email us, of course. I'd like to thank our sponsors, HEA, Milestone, Elements, Century 21 Sheets, Housemasters, Meridian Title, Ray Insurance Group, Davis Homes, and Platt Collective. We'll have some additional ones coming up as well. So we'll reiterate this towards the end of the meeting as well, but we gather funds for the Eagle store. I mean, technically Brookside can use it for whatever, but we gather it every month for Brookside Elementary. This helps them fund their Eagle store, put prizes in there. The kids are rewarded on good behavior. They can go and use their bucks to buy some things. It's a big cause that we're behind. We'd love to be able to donate to them as much as possible. Obviously, COVID's kind of changed what they do there, and so our dollars really help. You can Venmo Jen Short at Jen-Short-6, and we'll flash that up a couple of different times throughout the meeting, so you guys don't forget. So first, we are going to kick it over to Davis Homes, our sponsor. Rosie, can you cue up their commercial? And then after our commercial, we'll have Francis Williams drop a little knowledge on for us.
At Davis Homes, we believe building your custom home should be easy and affordable. With years of experience building on-your-lot custom homes in Central Indiana, Davis Homes makes building your custom home stress-free. From land selection and free site analysis to financing and an in-house design studio, Davis Homes helps every step of the way. Customize one of our plans or bring your own. 0 to 5% down gets the process started. Build your dream home in your dream location with Davis Homes. Downtown, in a custom community, or rural setting. DavisHomes.com.
So that was a quick little commercial. I thought it was a little bit longer, but that's okay. Hi, my name's Francis Williams, and I'm trying to figure out what my role is here at Davis Homes. Realtor relations is part of it. So I go out and I teach everybody about new construction and about Davis Homes, and I'm excited to be here today with all of you guys. So just a few things about the market. So last year, there were 8,600 permits that were pulled in the Indianapolis area. And so that's the largest permits pulled since 2006. So if you're not talking about new constructions with your buyer, you definitely want to make sure that that you are. A few of the things that we see that will happen this year, obviously land is probably the biggest thing, but we do build in the Indianapolis downtown area and the surrounding areas. It's just finding lots. So a few things about Davis. We can build on your lot, meaning that we can team up together to find a lot for your client, or build in one of our communities. We've got a couple different communities, one in Fortville, which is downtown, in downtown Fortville, and then Greenfield and Ingalls. We've got some new things that will come aboard this next year, hopefully. So we're excited about that. The one thing that we do that a lot of realtors don't know about is we can actually team up with you on lots that you have listed. So we can send over plans and specs to be able to list a house on that lot. And we pay 1% commission if we end up building on that lot. If you bring us the client, then you get your additional 3%. And so It's just another way to be able to generate traffic and generate money in your pocket. So if you have any questions about, how to build a house on somebody's lot, what that process looks like, I would be more than happy to help out. And all of our plans, all of our pricing is all on our website at davishomes.com. So you can download any of those videos, those pictures, you can upload those, use those for your social media. And so we always encourage a lot of the social media stuff right now, since that's how we advertise right now. But we would love to be able to help you out. So if you have any questions, let me know. I can put my information in the chat button, but we'd be glad to help you out.
Thank you, Frances. Really appreciate it. Also, Frances and I were real classmates in 2020, which was a longer year. So we've developed pretty good friendship there, but Frances is great. If you have any questions on how to contact her or anything like that, please reach out to either her or myself. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. So without further ado, the woman of the hour, Meg Pernsley. Meg, are you on here?
I am. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll let you take it away. If you guys have questions during the presentation, feel free to message myself or Rosie directly, and then or you can message Meg directly as well. That way we're kind of keeping the chat streamlined there. Go ahead, Meg, take it away.
All right. Well, first of all, I just want to say hello to everyone. And I can't believe how many people are on this today. It looks like there's 128 participants, which is amazing. So I'm so happy to see that everyone's interested in learning, hopefully learning something today. So let me go ahead and share my screen. And we'll go ahead and just kind of give you a little overview about the IHPC first. And of course, since we're talking about historic preservation, we are going to give you a little history lesson here before we kick it into some questions and answers. So Larry, can you just give me a little head nod that you can see my screen? Okay, great. So again, thank you for joining in today. And my name is Meg Pernsley, and I'm the administrator of the Indianapolis Historic Preservation Commission. And for those of you who are not familiar with IHPC, we are a division of the Department of Metropolitan Development, and we are located in the City County building, if you're not familiar with where we're located. So a little background about who we are. So I'm actually staff to the commission along with our other staff members, and we serve the commission, which is a 9-member commission. And the commission is formed under state law, which a lot of people are not familiar with. The commission's actually been around for a pretty long time, so since 1967. And the commissioners are appointed by the mayor and the city county council. They are not paid, they're strictly volunteer. And their primary function is to protect historically significant buildings in neighborhoods throughout Marion County. And like I said before, we function as a department or division of the Department of Metropolitan Development. And some of you may be familiar with our staff it's a small but mighty staff of 6. And like I said, we're located on the 18th floor of the City County building, which is pictured here in the bottom right. Of course, as many of you are, we are currently working from home, but we are fully functioning and operational. So I'm sure lots of you are very familiar with some of the areas that we have designated and have probably sold lots of properties in them, as they are, there's quite a few of them actually, 17 districts. And a lot of people aren't aware that we actually have 14 individual sites too. So if you're familiar with Union Station or the Circle Theater, those are all individually protected by the IHPC. Lockerbie Square is one of our historic districts, along with Heron Morton Place, just to name a few. And so the primary functions of the IHPC are preservation, of course. And then the other thing that the IHPC does is they act as the Board of Zoning Appeals and as the hearing examiner for the MDC. And basically what that means is if you are doing work in a historic district that's protected by the IHPC, our staff will review any kind of variance or zoning petition, and all of that goes together in an application that our staff will take in and review. And then the commission will hear those all at the same time. So that function has been around since about 1997. And they primarily took on that role to make it a little easier for property owners to go through the process of any kind of land use change in a locally protected district. Some of you are probably familiar of the function of the certificate of appropriateness, and that's basically the IHPC's version of a permit in some ways. You are required to get that before you get a permit, but that's what our approval process is called. And the second function, of course, is creating plans with recommendations for all of those 17 historic districts that I mentioned before. And here's one that some of you might be familiar with. This is the cover and an excerpt from the Irvington Historic Area Plan. And each district has a plan that's like this, that has a set of recommendations. And this is an example here of doors and door openings. And it also goes into detail about things that you don't need approval for. So it's always recommended that if you are in a district, that you are familiar with the plan for that area and you become familiar with the recommendations in them. And those are all on our website, by the way. And speaking of website, so many of you are probably interested in what is actually required of a property owner once they purchase property in a historic district. So like I said before, the certificate of appropriateness is the approval process that an applicant will go through to get approval to do any work to their property. The online application is available, and this is just a screenshot of that here with the web address. And if a homeowner or building owner is looking to do any work to the exterior of the property, they would go ahead and fill out an application like this one you see here, and that goes directly to our office for review. You're always welcome, of course, to reach out to staff as well, but this makes it a little easier for people to navigate through the process. And of course, it's digitized, which is particularly great these days. And here you go. This is a screenshot of what a certificate of appropriateness looks like. And if you're driving around in any of the neighborhoods, you might actually see some of these posted on the property. And that is the approval for that scope of work. And again, I cannot stress enough that the COA is required before any permits are issued. And the Department of Business and Neighborhood Services, they're keenly aware of that and will flag that property if they do not have one at the time of application for permit. So how long does all of this take? So there's 3 basic levels of approval, and most of the approvals that we do are what we call a staff approval. And that's about 60% of the reviews that we do fall under this category. And that takes about 5 days or so. So it's pretty quick. The other 2 types of approvals require a hearing officer approval, which is about 3.5 weeks. And that is a public hearing, or something that some of you may be familiar with, and that is a commission hearing. The commission meets once a month and they review projects that fall under the commission level of approval category. And that usually takes about 30 days, but I say 90 days here just to kind of anticipate that sometimes a case might actually get continued when it goes through the commission hearing process. So just to be on the safe side, especially if there's one of those land use petitions involved, that can take a little bit longer than a month or 2. So one question you all probably will get when you're selling property in a historic district is, how in the world am I supposed to know that I'm in a historic district? So there's a couple ways that IHPC tries to make it a little bit easier for the property owner and for you as agents to know when a property is locally protected. So the first is that any new district, of course, goes through a very public process. Irvington, for example, had 35 public meetings before it was adopted. And so people receive notices about those meetings and about the designation process. So it is not something that happens in a vacuum or behind closed doors. It's very public, and the neighborhood is also always very involved in that process as well. The second thing is, back starting in the early 2000s, we started to record what we call a notice of jurisdiction. And that is just a document that is recorded in the recorder's office that notifies the title company or anybody that is looking for records on that property that that property is under the jurisdiction of the IHPC. And so you can see those documents yourself if you look it up, or like I said, oftentimes will get flagged during the title search. The other way that you will find out if you're in a district is when you pull a permit, like I was mentioning before, and that will get flagged by the Department of Business and Neighborhood Services. The last way is that the contractors, when they go through what they call general contractor training, they are briefed on the IHPC's process, and they also receive a manual that has a copy of all of the maps that are under IHPC's jurisdiction, and they are fully trained on the process to obtain a certificate of appropriateness. So a property owner, if it's smart to ask your contractor if they've been through general contractors training. And then thanks to MIBOR, thank you MIBOR, here the last couple of years, we were able to get all of the IHPC properties flagged in Realist. So that is a handy tool for you all when you are really starting off the search for a property for your buyer. So I did a screenshot here so you can kind of take a look at what you will see if the property is inside an IHPC designated area. So you'll see where that red circle is, it'll show up as Historic Preservation District. And so that's just a trigger to all of the agents that the IHPC is going to have jurisdiction over that property. Now, MIBOR is, I know, exploring other counties as well to do something similar. But at least if you're looking in Marion County, you know, if that shows up that you're going to want to reach out to the IHPC to learn a little bit more. The other way is we have a tool on our website called Find Your Historic District. And this is actually available for IHPC districts and as well as the Meridian Street Preservation District, which I can go into more detail here in a minute. So any IHPC property will, as soon as you enter the property address, it'll show up that it is in a designated IHPC area. If it's in a Meridian Street preservation area, that'll show up as well. And it has a flag that pops up with all of the contact information for Meridian Street as well as the IHPC. So you can do a quick search there. If it is not inside, it will not show up as either. So if it says nothing, then you'll know that it is not designated. And then of course, you know, we always have some online tools that you can use to do a little research as well. And of course, like I always tell everybody, please, please, please give us a call. You know, we're in the world of modern technology, but we still use the phone. So feel free to give us a call if you have any questions or just want to talk to a live person, which we all like to do. If you are more independent in your research, you can use the city's MapIndy tool. It is going through a little bit of a makeover right now. So if you've been using it in the past, it's going to look a little different, but it's still there. And you can search for things like, is the property in a district? What is the property zoned as? And as well as a whole plethora of other GIS layers that are available to you to do some additional research on the property. And as I tell everyone, agents, property owners, no matter who you are, always, 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 I strongly encourage you to look at the zoning classification for a property, especially before you go ahead and list it. A lot of times properties, it looks and everything about it is a residential property, for example, but sometimes there is some rather unusual zoning that might be on that property, such as industrial. Lockerbie Square is notorious for this. So if you're selling property in Lockerbie, definitely check out the zoning, because I would not assume if there's a 1880s cottage that it's actually legal to have a house there, as weird as that sounds. So double check the zoning just to make sure. And these tools can help you do that. And of course, we can always let you know that as well. So a little bit about what actually requires approval. So I always tell people that I would assume that anything on the exterior of a property is going to require some kind of review. There's a few exceptions to that, but it's always better to assume yes and learn no than the other way around. So, and of course, the other would be a land use change, which would be a variance or a rezoning of the property. And so those two things are either going to require the certificate of appropriateness application or that zoning or variance petition. And so this is my favorite section of the slide presentation, and that is what happens if you don't get approval. I will preface this by saying to all of you, you don't want to find that out, of course, but in the event that a property owner does do work without a certificate of appropriateness and they're in a locally protected district, they will likely get a stop work order. And that is issued by the Department of Business and Neighborhood Services on our behalf. And then of course, if a property owner is not responsive to the stop work order, then they can start to accrue penalties and there might be a hearing to discuss the project. And then of course, the worst case scenario would be that there was a lawsuit that would be filed in the form of a complaint to the city prosecutor. Again, at the beginning of the slide presentations, I talked about how the commission operates under state law. And so when work is done without approval, it is a violation of state law. And so that's why we would file a complaint with the city prosecutor if somebody was doing work without that approval. And then of course, how this affects you all is if a sale is pending, then you learn there's a stop work order that can certainly put really costly delays and obviously put delays on the sale itself. And so that's certainly something you want to learn a little bit about prior to listing and certainly closing. If you're just wanting to know whether there's any enforcement action on a property, you can certainly call our office and we can look that up for you to let you know if there are any violations on the property. And that could be IHPC, that can be any kind of violations related to building codes or even the health department. We can see all of those things in our system. So we're happy to take a look at that for you. And if you still have questions after looking at all of those things, you're obviously more than welcome to give us a call and we can chat through some of the questions that you might have. One of the nice things that our office offers to property owners or even to agents, if you're wanting to do this, is we do site visits to the property, which we are still having even during the pandemic. We just try to obviously do social distancing and have as few people on site as possible, but we can certainly come out to the property and take a look at what it is that the client maybe wants to do, or just to talk a little bit about future plans for that property. And like I said, we're happy to schedule those with anybody that's interested. If you need to get a hold of me specifically, this is my contact information. And right now, I will tell you email is probably the best way to get a hold of me. We are not currently in the office, so that office number, I will not pick it up right away, but I do check my messages. But if there's something pressing that you need, I'm certainly happy to answer your questions via email, and I will get back to you as soon as I possibly can. So I wanted to leave plenty of time for questions and hopefully answer your questions. And so, Larry, I don't know how you want to do this, but if we want to kick off any questions and answers, I'm happy to help.
Yeah, we can kind of just like, I've seen some questions in the chat, just keep dropping them in the chat, I guess. If you want to make your face seen, I guess, raise your hand and then raise your digital hand, of course, and Meg can call on you. I'll let you kind of run with the show though. It's your floor, Meg, so however you want to do it.
Okay, so let's see, I'm taking a look here. Somebody asked if David Baker is still here, and I can answer that. So David Baker has retired after 33 years, and I did take David Baker's position. I probably failed to mention this earlier, but I've actually been with the IHPC for 20 years. So I was a reviewer for a long time, and then once David retired, I took the role of administrator and have been doing that for about 3 years now. And so, so David is well deserved of his retirement at this point. Let's see, scrolling through here. How much does an application cost? That is from Ruth Teskey, and the answer to that is it varies. And so we have a fee schedule on our website that you're welcome to take a look at. I would say that any kind of a homeowner repair is on the lower end of the fee schedule. If you're proposing to do any new construction, there is a pretty significant fee associated with new construction at 70 cents per square foot. And demolition, of course, as you probably can assume, we try to discourage, but there is I believe it's a $5,000 filing fee for demolition of a primary structure. And that is all non-refundable at the time of application. So if you have a client that wants to do work to a property, they of course want to make sure that they're serious about that before they go ahead and pay those fees. Looks like Debbie Pigeon already answered that question, so thanks, Debbie. And let's see, does the Meridian Street Preservation Commission have jurisdiction on Illinois and Pennsylvania? Yes, there are portions of Illinois and Pennsylvania that are included, even though they're technically in probably what most would consider Meridian Kessler, there is a secondary area that covers some of that area. And there is a map on their website, by the way, that you can take a look at to get a better understanding of where those properties fall. Meridian Kessler is also, just FYI, getting ready to go through the designation process. It's probably going to take a while, and so there's still probably at least a year before we'll see any activity on that, but just a heads up that the entire district boundary is up for consideration.
Meg, does that mean all zones of Meridian Kessler?
That's, yes, correct, all zones. And I think there's maybe like 8 zones in Meridian Kessler.
8. Yeah.
Yes, so all zones are included in the proposed boundaries. And as of right now, those are all going to be up for consideration. Meridian Kessler is going to look a little different than our other districts if it's designated. And what I mean by that is we're not going to get into the nuts and bolts of reviewing paint and windows and tuck pointing and all of the repair stuff. What we are going to look at is demolition, which is a real hot topic in Meridian Kessler right now. And the other is going to be any kind of new construction or land use petitions. So talked about those zoning and variance petitions. And feel free, if anybody has a question that's not on here, please ask away. Are all historic districts governed under IHPC? And that's a great question. So looks like Doug helped me out on this one, but yes, so just for a little bit of clarification, locally protected districts are IHPC districts. Many of you are probably familiar with the National Register of Historic Places. Not all National Register historic areas are under the jurisdiction of the IHPC. So there are some that are both in the National Register and locally designated, but don't assume that if it's on the National Register that it's locally protected, because that's not always the case. I think a lot of people think that if it's on the National Register that you can't demolish anything, and that's actually not true. If your property is on the National Register, you can pretty much do whatever you want to the property as long as you're not using federal funds. So that's a pretty significant difference. And that's why local designation is so important, because it does add that extra layer of protection. Doug mentioned the covenant properties with Indiana landmarks, which is another category. If you are not sure if a property has a covenant on it, there's a couple of ways that you can find that out. And if you're not familiar with Indiana landmarks, they're a statewide preservation organization. Landmarks will record a covenant on the property, which should show up in the title search, but they also keep a list of those properties at their office. So you're more than welcome to give them a call. We do try to keep a list of those properties also. So if you're not sure, you can try to reach out to us and we'll see if we can't answer that question for you. But the covenant actually does require the property owner to get a second level of approval. So, and many IHPC properties are also covenant properties. So they will have to receive approval from the IHPC, and they will need to get approval from Indiana Landmarks. And I can talk more about that if there's more questions related to that. And thanks everybody for helping me answer these questions, by the way. So Chase has a question, what is the difference between historic designation and historic areas? Example, historic Watson Park, does IHPC have any jurisdiction? So kind of a similar question in that some areas are historic, but they may not be IHPC designated. Watson Park's an example of that, which I do believe is on the National Register. So let's see. Are properties regularly reviewed by IHPC at times other than when they request making changes? The answer to that is generally no. Unless a homeowner asks to do work to the property, there isn't going to be a review. The one exception I would say is from time to time, IHPC will do what we call a neighborhood-wide city-initiated rezoning. Cottage home is one of those. We did a survey of the cottage home neighborhood a couple years back and learned that, kind of like Lockerbie, a lot of the properties were zoned industrial. So instead of putting the burden of rezoning those properties on the homeowners, we just said, hey, cottage home, do you want to do a mass rezoning of the entire neighborhood to clean up all of these industrial zone properties? And so we spearheaded that initiative, and property owners, of course, consented to the rezoning. And we went ahead and acted as the applicant on behalf of the property owners to rezone those properties and review that for rezoning and basically cleaning up the zoning so that everyone had what we would consider to be the recommended zoning for the property, which would be residential. Other than that, no, the answer to that would be no. Okay, so Dan Adams has a question and says, as we look at materials, a la copper gutters, tiles, slate roofs, etc., that for replacement, the cost is quite expensive and the owner can't afford, or it doesn't make economic sense to do with like materials, what happens? That is a great question. Thanks for asking, Dan. So the IHPC has a process called a certificate of authorization. And the certificate of authorization is designed to address situations exactly like this. So I would say on average, a standard 2-story, 3,000 square foot home in one of our districts, if it has a slate roof, for example, a replacement cost could be, $75,000 to replace it with a authentic slate roof. And so we know that is just not feasible for any homeowner. It's also just doesn't make any sense, to be honest. So why would you put that percentage of cost into just your roof? And so the commission has a process where you can ask to vary from what the recommendations are in the plan and say, hey, commission, a slate tile roof would be great, but $75,000 is a little steep. So the commission can consider economic hardship in that situation. And they have, and the commission has a practice of, specifically in a situation like roofing, where you have a slate tile or even like a clay tile roof, the commission has considered alternative materials other than a match for that. So we can certainly do that. Similarly, if a property owner has a financial hardship due to their personal situation, they can also reach out to staff and we can talk about alternatives to what the recommendations require and ask the commission for a certificate of authorization for that also. So the next question is, how does an area get recommended to be a historic district? So that's a great question. So, and that is from Angela Johnson. And generally the neighborhood will reach out to our office and ask us. A lot of times people think that we go around and sort of wave a magic wand and poof, something is designated, when in reality, what really happens is the neighborhood will band together and say, you know, we're really interested in protecting our historic resources here. What do you have that could help us? And so we start to have that conversation about designation and if they think that they would have support for designation. Typically, the commission likes to see a majority in support. It's not required, but we do like for there to be enough support where at least a little bit more than half of the district is supportive of the idea. And then once we have that, we start going through that process. The process looks very different for every neighborhood. We've had districts designated in a year, and then we have the infamous Woodruff Place designation, which took about 30 years. So it doesn't usually take that long, by the way, but usually it's like 1 to 2 years for designation to kind of go through that process. Let's see, Eric asks, is there a map of all locations, local and national districts? Yes, and you can go to our website and we have a map of every district that is IHPC designated. And that mapping tool at MapND that I shared with you earlier, if you go to that website, you can also look at the national register layers and see the other national districts that are throughout Marion County. You can also look at individual national register sites because there are some of those as well.
Hey, Meg, we can keep going through these questions, but I think you have material that we could share with everyone as far as some of these things that were in the presentation, like as far as the after hours, that way they can kind of go look and see.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, we have on our website, we have, and I can send you the links if you want to send those out, but we have
that'd be great.
All of the plans that I referred to, all of the maps that I referred to, the fee schedule, our policies and procedures, all of that's on our website. And it's a lot. I'm not going to lie, there's a lot of information there for you to kind of sift through. But if there's something specific, we can certainly help you try to find that.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, let's see. Let me scroll down here a little bit. Let's see, Janet asks, is a permit needed to demolish a detached garage of a home? Yes, a permit is required to do that. And that would, if it's in a historic district of the IHPCs, just as a reminder, you're going to want to get that certificate of appropriateness first, and then take that certificate to the permit office to apply for the actual wrecking permit. So just remember, COA first, permit second. Let's see. Oh, this is an interesting question. So Christy asks, how can we learn more about the consideration of all of Meridian Kessler being placed under IHPC jurisdiction? So glad you asked that question. Says, I think there are many thinking these restrictions will be exactly like the Meridian Street homeowners requirements. And I think it'd be good to I think it would be helpful if realtors could get the word out. Yes, absolutely, please. So as you can probably imagine, there are 18,000 people that live in Meridian Kessler. So it's going to be a Herculean effort to get the information out. We are just at the infancy of this designation process. And so we haven't even had a public meeting about it yet. So when we do, there's going to be a whole series of educational opportunities to educate the public about what the designation looks like. I can tell you, I'm fairly certain there's already a little bit of a misunderstanding about what is being proposed. So if any agent can help kind of squash that, that would be fabulous, because we are, like I said before, we're not going to get into the nuts and bolts of restoration work and all of that. It's limited to demolition, new construction, and land use changes. If people have questions about that, they can certainly reach out to us, but feel free to share that with anyone that asks, because that's, I think, going to be one of the concerns that the neighborhood in general probably will have is, you know, how much is going to be reviewed and not reviewed. Let's see. If the wood windows are beyond repair, can they be replaced, and do they have to be wood or can they be vinyl? So the answer to that is it depends on which district it's in. Some of our plans, which we call conservation district plans, vinyl windows might be okay. Ransom Place is one district that's a conservation district where vinyl windows are actually allowed. But generally, as a rule, if you have original windows still in the building and it's a regular historic district, we're going to first look to see if you can keep them, because that's our goal, is to try to retain as much of the original material as possible. If they are beyond repair, like you mentioned, then we would start looking at a wood replacement as the first option and then kind of go from there. So our staff is really great. We have several reviewers on our staff, and they're really knowledgeable about products and what's available out there. And they can certainly talk to you and walk you through all the sort of minutia of the various products that are out there. Let's see, Susan says, I'm considering removing the aluminum siding to expose the original clapboards. Great. Could you brief how difficult the COA process would be? Well, actually, it's really simple for that because we actually don't review that. We encourage people to remove aluminum siding, and so you don't actually have to get a certificate for that. So that is one of the rare exceptions where you're not required to get approval. Now, if you have to do repair work to the siding that's underneath, then you'll need to reach out to staff and talk about getting a certificate. The other thing I would add about that, because a lot of people don't catch this, is that if you're removing aluminum siding, I would definitely talk to your contractor about what the recycle fee would be, because you can actually get a little bit of money for your aluminum siding. Especially if you have steel siding and aluminum siding, there is a little bit of a recycling fee that you can make a little money off of your old siding. So your contractor probably will tell you he will gladly take it off your hands, but just remember that he may go to recycle it. So you want to at least ask the question. Let's see, the next question is, can I go to your website and find out if an exterior reno on a home in Irvington was permitted? Home was beautiful, but the character of the home was completely changed by the reno or addition. Yes, you can. So I will actually, Larry, I'll go ahead and send the link to you to how people can search for certificates and for permits, actually.
Okay.
And if anybody's interested, I can also send, we get a lot of questions about how can you file a complaint. So if you wanted to file a complaint with IHPC or with the Mayor's Action Center, I can certainly send that information over to you also.
Great. We'll include that in our communication for because we always push out notifications for March's meeting, and we'll include that in that email. So if anyone has any questions.
Another question about garages. What's the process to build a garage in the back of the existing building? Can the deteriorated wood siding be replaced with fiber cement and wood replaced? So with any kind of new construction, we're going to review that. So just reach out to a reviewer at our office and you can certainly ask about what the process will be. There is going to be a public hearing for any kind of new construction. So if you're thinking about building something, just think about building it a little bit of time into your construction schedule for that. And then fiber cement, as a general rule, is not allowed on historic buildings, but it is allowed on freestanding new construction. So not for any kind of repairs, but a new building, of course, we would certainly allow that. And that's in any district. And that might be the end of those questions there, Larry.
I kind of have a question. Can you talk about, I think a lot of times people will think about the inside of the house versus the outside of a home. And what kind of scope of work would you need to be worried about for a COA? Kind of dive deeper into that, I guess.
Sure, that's a great question. So the IHPC does not review any work on the interior with the exception of a few of the individually designated sites. So Union Station, Circle Theater, we actually have jurisdiction over the interior of those spaces. The commission can designate an interior, but with most of the districts that we have, it's just not a practical thing for us to review. So you can do whatever you want on the inside, as long as it's compliant with the zoning and it's a use that's permitted.
Let's see. Well, I think if we don't have any additional questions, oh, we got some more.
Okay, let's see.
So
what
before
about-
you get into, I have this scheduled until 12:30. By no means do we have to stay until 12:30, everyone. So I want to honor everyone's time, of course, but don't feel pressure to ask questions.
Okay, so yeah, we do. We have got a couple more questions here. So Doug asked, what about landscaping and trees? And we do review landscaping and trees. Each plan is a little different. So depending on the district that you're in, I would definitely look at the recommendations in the plan, because sometimes the plans will have some language in it that says we don't review certain types of landscaping. But as a general practice, that is something that we're going to look at, and that's in both existing structures as well as any kind of new construction. Same thing for trees. You can imagine, like Woodruff Place is really characterized by its landscaping, and that's one of the things that we definitely review there. Let's see, Eric asks, is removing lead paint or changing paint color something you regulate? So the IHPC is not necessarily the authority on the lead paint part of your question, but we do review new paint colors in almost all of our districts. There's a few exceptions. Here in Morton Place, for example, their plan excludes the review of paint color. Cottage Home also excludes the review of paint color. Lockerbie, Old North Side, we review paint colors there. St. Joseph, we review colors there. So most of the time we do get into that. One thing that is a pretty common violation in our districts is the painting of unpainted masonry. So if you're, and that's a very kind of on trend thing to do right now. So if your client is purchasing a home, let's say that's brick in an IHPC district, it might be worth mentioning that if they're thinking about painting the brick, they're definitely going to want to ask first. So that's just so that they don't get in trouble. But otherwise, the lead paint is something that's generally regulated by the health department. Let's see, Michelle asks, what about exterior features such as a deck or a pergola? Yes, we review most of those things as well. Irvington does exclude some of those things. That was a question by Martine, so that is correct. And some of the other district plans also exclude certain things, especially on the back of the property. So again, I just encourage you, if you know the district that you are interested in, I would check out that plan to see what it says, because not all the plans say exactly the same thing. Let's see. There's a question about lead chips and hazardous materials. And so the question is, does anybody know where you can take them? And I don't know that I know the answer to that, but I would maybe check with the health department, and I'm sure they have an entire hazardous waste team that can hopefully answer that question. And specifically, they have lead paint experts on their staff, and I'm sure that they'll know the answer to that. My guess is that that's regulated by the EPA, and so there's probably some legal ramifications of where you can and can't take those. So just be cognizant of that. By the way, any violation of the EPA laws, especially with lead paint removal, is extremely costly. So that's one thing a property owner is going to want to be aware of, that you cannot, under any circumstances, remove lead paint on your own if you are not a qualified lead abatement officer. you can get like a $50,000 fine for removing lead paint without the proper measures taken, and especially disposal of it as well. So just be really keenly aware of that. Okay, the next question is, I'm not seeing the regulations codes for each individual historic neighborhood on the website. Where specifically can we find those? I'm happy to, again, send that to Larry, but there is, on the website, you'll see at the bottom, there's a series of what looks like little cards. One of those cards says historic and conservation districts. And if you click it, you'll see sort of a pull down menu of all of our historic districts, and all of the plans are attached to those different pull down menus. But I can, again, I'll send it over to Larry so everybody has that. Let's see. And thanks everybody for pitching in. Debbie, I see you have a link to the plans there. Thank you. And then let's see. The question is the LBP fine only for historic properties? I think that's the lead paint, yes. Thanks for clarification. Any property that has paint on it prior to, I think it's 1976, is potentially a property with lead paint. So it's not just IHPC districts, it's any property that has paint prior to that date. So, you know, that could be anywhere in Marion County. So just be aware of that. I say IHPC because obviously every property in an IHPC district is going to be, unless it's new construction, is going to generally be older than 50 years old. And so, and of course, we're obviously working with properties that were built in the 1800s. So many of those are properties that do contain lead paint. So it's just something to be keenly aware of.
Meg, just for kicks and giggles, do you have any horror stories to tell us?
That's exactly what I was going to ask next, actually. So
yeah, so the one infamous and fairly famous horror story that happened with the IHPC was a house that was demolished in Fletcher Place a couple years ago. Larry's shaking his head. I think you might know what I'm talking about.
I live in Fletcher Place. I was very aware it's just down the road.
Yeah, so in that instance, it was a situation where a property owner demolished a property without a certificate of appropriateness, but they also did it without a permit. And so they received violations from both the IHPC and code enforcement. And the IHPC ultimately heard that request. They did receive a, I'll call it a decision from the commission, and the decision from the commission was obviously to, you know, approve the demolition because it was already completed, but there was a substantial amount that the property owner did have to pay to the IHPC as a mitigation effort. And of course, they did have to build a building back in its place. And so that was a significant cost to the property owner to mitigate that violation. So the good news is we didn't have to take it to court, which is always preferred. The IHPC is really good about trying to figure out a solution outside of court if we can do that. Demolition's hard because you can't bring it back, but we did the best that we could to have them actually reconstruct the house like it appeared when it was there. So again, like I mentioned before, not the way to do things. So it's always very wise for a property owner to just reach out to the staff and ask questions ahead of time, for sure. You know, we do have, in every district of ours, we have violations, and that's just going to be part of it. But that is the very reason why we're doing this training today, so that everybody can, you know, just have a little bit more awareness of the process. And it is arguably a lot to know, and we understand that. So we try to answer your questions as best we can and help educate you so that you can share that knowledge and just have that knowledge for yourself, so these kinds of things can be avoided. Let's see. Oh, see, we're getting questions now here. Let's Say, have you seen homeowners face challenges with their insurance companies on claims not covered what the historic district requirements call for? That's a good question. We've been really, actually, over the years, we've had pretty decent luck working with insurance companies, especially after they learn that it is locally protected. I am not the expert on this, but there are policies that a homeowner can purchase that are specifically for properties that are historic. So, and that's mainly because sometimes to reconstruct things costs a little bit more than on an average home. So that might be something they may want to look at. And I do believe there may be some companies that have a rider of some sort that they can attach to their current homeowner's insurance that'll help sort of mitigate some of these things. There was a case, I can tell you, oddly, again, it was in Fletcher Place years ago, where the neighboring home caught on fire and it subsequently caught this homeowner's house on fire. And the insurance company they only wanted to replace the one half of the roof, not both sides. And so they reached out to us and said, is there anything you could do to help us? This is a little silly not to have our whole roof replaced. And so, you know, we shared with the insurance company that when we do a review, we are reviewing the replacement material for the roofing as well. And so we told them that it is our preference that the entire roof be replaced with matching material, and they did go ahead and do that. So in a lot of ways, the designation can be really helpful for people in that regard. Okay, next question is, where does the money go for permits and fines? So the IHPC, so just for clarification, IHPC doesn't actually have fines. The IHPC has a fee schedule, and that's what the application fee is for. And that is our operating budget. We don't receive tax dollars, so the operating budget is solely based on the fees that we collect. B&S is different. B&S does issue citations and collects fines for failure to obtain a permit. The next question is, what is the best book you would recommend for historic preservation ideas? Ooh, you know what, Larry, I'm going to have to send you a list. We have a few recommendations under that category, so I'm happy to forward that over to you. Let's see, moving along here.
Kind of sticking with, you were talking about replacement stuff. I know there's the rule of, can you talk about, like, I live in Fletcher Place in the historic designation, and if I wanted to replace my siding, the existing wood siding with matching wood siding, is there a rule on how much I can replace, and what is that?
That's a great question. So like with the windows that we talked about earlier, the goal is to try, in any historic district, the goal is to try to retain as much of the original material as we can. Now, having said that, not everybody has historic material. So in other words, a previous owner may have already replaced your wood siding. So we would come out and take a look to see if in fact you have original material and see what condition it's in. If we can justify the replacement, we typically will ask for that to be replaced where it needs to be replaced, as opposed to doing a mass replacement. There are some exceptions though, where the siding, like on an entire elevation, might actually warrant full replacement. And we've done that before. But the goal would be to try to keep it to a minimum if we can do that, and try to retain as much of the original material as we can. That was all the questions I saw in the chat box, Larry.
Great, I appreciate it. This was great. I hope everyone got a little bit of this. Obviously, it's a very vast subject and case by case, neighborhood by neighborhood, block by block kind of situation. So we really appreciate it. We'll make sure to distribute as much as you want to give us to distribute, we'll distribute, because it's just a great tool for everyone. Thank you for everyone for the questions. I really appreciate it. If you have additional questions, maybe we'll do like, we'll get like a frequently asked questions thing to you, Meg, and maybe go from there and revisit this later in the year. Yeah. So great. So next, first off, thanks for everyone again. I'm going to share my screen here to kind of talk about the next meeting. Then I'm going to pitch it to Andrew for our My Board meeting updates. One housekeeping thing, I mentioned it in the chat at the beginning of the meeting. If you are watching with multiple people on the same camera, please make sure to send us your My Board number, as we want to make sure we get attendance for everyone. I've got a couple of you, I'd appreciate that. And obviously with COVID, most of us are at our house, right? So I appreciate that. So next for March, before I pitch it to Andrew, our March meeting is called How Do You Sell Indy? And it's presented by Life in Indy. Think relocation, think about selling Indianapolis on a national scale. If that interests you and how to be part of that conversation on attracting talent here, this is a meeting for you. We'll be dropping some additional knowledge on this throughout, in the promotion upcoming for next month, but really excited about it. We'll I leave it vague on purpose to pique your interest. So Mr. Andrew, where are you at?
Sorry, Larry, I was struggling to find my unmute button. I'm right here. I'm right here, Larry. I've been here. I was here as Meg got all these questions thrown at her and she answered them perfectly, stuck the landing. What a knowledgeable presenter. Awesome. All right, can I talk about My Board now?
Absolutely, crush it.
Okay, well, shoot. I got one more question for everyone in the room. I'll just go to the chair. Larry, can you tell me who won the Denver Hut Rising Star Award for the industry in 2020?
Man. Well, I did. Yeah.
Oh, that's right. You did. That's right. You did.
Hello.
So guys, we're in the presence of greatness. We're in the presence of, it's on paper, a rise in our wealth of industry. So congrats to the downtown chair. Good job, Larry. Round of applause for Larry Nutt, guys.
Thank you very much.
He proves himself by hosting such a great meeting for us, such a great time for over 100 people to get together and ask these questions about Indy. It's awesome. So with that being said, though, I'm Andrew Huber, and these are the headlines coming out of My Board. February is here, and that means it's Super Bowl time. Oh my gosh, I just said Super Bowl out loud. Is a lightning bolt going to strike me down? All right, how's about this? It's time for the big game. The unofficial kickoff of the spring real estate market is here. Showing Times live webinar, save time and generate more showings. A showing time for the MLS overview is just for us. It's just for the My Board members. Discover how you can use their complimentary services to save time, generate more showings, and help you sell your listings more efficiently. You will learn how to use the schedule showing link to request showings on other agents' listings, add showing instructions and determine the best settings for each of your listings, set your notification preferences, create a buyer's tour with ease and simplicity with Showing Cart, and download and use the Showing Time mobile app to request and confirm appointments while on the go and more. You can join us virtually February 9th from 10 to 10:30, February 10th from 1 to 1:30, or February 11th from 2 to 2:30. If I said anything that interests you, message me in the chat, give me your member number, and I'll register for you. Let me know which time, 9th, 10th, or 11th. They're half-hour sessions, they're virtual. Get to know Showing Time, get the most out of Showing Time, and make sure it's working for you and you not working for it, right? My Board's moving on to Growstone. We are still moving over to that new membership database. All right, I said that last month. You guys get it. Kickstart 2021 by making a commitment to learning more and dedicating time to being an even better professional realtor. Join the growing list of members who have already completed the My Board Master Professional Certification Program, or MPRO. Our next MPRO Bootcamp will take place virtually February 22nd through the 26th. Some of the activities you're doing already, like being here, attending a My Board division meeting, or taking a tech training, will count towards your MPRO certification. If you've completed NAR's C2EX, then you could become MPRO Plus certified. To learn more, go to myboard.com/MPRO. And remember, the best way to increase and enhance the professionalism in our industry, not the industry, our industry, is to take that challenge yourself and become MPRO certified. This is a lot of words, and I'm not going to read it all right? I'm going to paraphrase it. And this is a call to, and I think I did it last month, but it's important, and I'm going to be doing this all year. This isn't just some flavor of the week kind of thing. If you are in your community, if you're in the greater downtown community, your community where you live, work, and play, and you see something in your community that could use a fresh coat of paint, or it'd be a lot better if there were some flowers planted at the entrance there. Something that will raise the quality of life in your community. Let my board know. You can let me know, get your foot in the door, let me know, and I'll get you to the right people. But let me simplify it for you. One of my board's why we do what we do is to strengthen our communities. We want Central Indiana to be a more desirable place to live. So if there's something in your community that my board can get behind and beautify or make better, raise the quality of life, then we're all about that. So if you're interested in that, let me know. You can go to myboard.com/gov and community relations for more information about this initiative. But this is going to be going on all year. So please, it's a call to action to you as an individual. If you know something, you have an idea, let us know. Let's get to work. Going into RPAC, is there an RPAC representative who would like to speak on behalf of RPAC? Just go ahead and be heard right now.
Can I do it?
Yeah, go for it.
Hey, thanks, Andy. It's going to be really hard to match your level of enthusiasm, but I will do my best. Doug Dilling, your downtown representative for RPAC, and this is our commercial to say what RPAC does. It does a heck of a lot. And right now, we are locally looking at increasing federal funding for rental assistance and trying to deal with the COVID. We're watching a series of proposals on environmental and sustainability initiatives that will impact property owners. Statewide, we're looking at necessary fixes to the remote notary legislation that we will all benefit from. So your RPAC is looking out for you and making your job easier for you. And federally, we're working with the new administration and trying to encourage COVID relief funds. It's all about what Andy talked about, quality of life issues and looking at politics that affect our operation. We are not a Republican or Democrat. We are a Republican Party. We look out for your interests. So when you get that request for funding, it is not a charitable contribution. It doesn't come from tax dollars. It comes from your investments. And we encourage you greatly to invest as much as you can. I'm going to put in the chat a link so you can go directly to the MyBoard site and learn more about RPAC. That's it. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Doug. And thank you, Doug, for putting yourself out there and volunteering your time, energy, and intellect to help our industry in the political arena, local, state, national. It might sound dramatic, but our industry is always at war in the political arena, and we need people like Doug and RPAC fighting for us in that arena. So thank you, Doug. Thank you for RPAC, myboard.com/RPAC. And finally, I just got a few things I'm going to say on behalf of the Realtor Foundation, unless a Realtor Foundation member wants to step up and let me know. I got to say it, right? I got to say it. On behalf of the Ball Committee and the MyBoard Realtor Foundation staff, thank you to anybody who volunteered, any of the winners, anybody who watched, Dave and Ray for performing, Scott Pollard for keeping things moving and keeping it entertaining. It was great. It was an awesome, awesome event put on by the Realtor Foundation and Regina Jones, of course. They raised more than $65,000 that night. So massive snaps to that. And it's no mystery, the Realtor Foundation, that $65,000 is going to go to Gabby Benson and then your peers who volunteer their time for the Realtor Foundation. That's then going to be redistributed into Central Indiana to help get Hoosiers in a home. What's not to love about that? So massive success to everybody who put work in for that. I mean, what an awesome thing they pulled off. Next thing, did you know that you can make a contribution to the Realtor Foundation at closing? Many brokerages offer transactional giving, so members can make direct impact on community through each transaction. A little at a time really adds up and donations are tax deductible. You probably wouldn't miss $5 from each of your closings. Consider signing up with your broker or helping your office set up this donation option. Contact the foundation for more information. I know I've said a lot of stuff, but if anything that I said, the showing time, that community economic development thing I mentioned, anything MyBoard related, let me be your liaison to that. My email is andrewhuber@myboard.com. I'm posting a new episode of the podcast tomorrow morning. I talked to Steve Thompson. If you guys know Steve, he's up in Madison, pretty great guy. Get to hear his story tomorrow. That's going to publish tomorrow at myboard.com/podcast. Anything else, please let me know. My name is Andrew Huber at myboard.com. Thanks for listening. Back to you, Denver Hut Rising Star.
Thank you, sir. And your podcast, right, is a former Denver Hut winner, correct?
Oh, yeah. Good point, man. Yeah, right. Yep.
Yeah.
Steve. Yep.
Yep. Well, perfect. Well, thanks, Andrew. Thanks, Doug. Appreciate it. Someone asked for the QR code. You should be seeing it on your screen now at Gen-Short-6 or that QR code there. we have other methods too. If you'd like to make a larger donation, please message me. We'll figure out how to take your money. We would love that. So I think that's about it. I don't have anything else to add. I thank you, Francis, for presenting. Thank you, everyone who contributed. Thank you very much, Meg. We are all smarter because of you. We look forward to seeing you on 1 month from today. So,
Hey, Larry.
yes. Oh, yeah,
Hey,
Jen,
Larry,
I'm
it's
sorry,
Jen.
you forgot. Yes, Jen has an announcement.
Whatever, it's fine. It's okay. You can forget about me. Just one quick thing. So Jen Short, your District 1 rep, just wanted to share with you guys one thing that came down from NAR, National Association of Realtors. You guys should all be getting an email, and your NERDS number, your NRDS number is going to be replaced with what they're calling an M1 number. Sounds very Mission Impossible-y, I don't know, an M1 number. So those are going to the current 1.4 million active realtor and realtor associates in NRDS. So batches are going out 100,000 per day. So watch for that. Don't delete it. It's not spam, but it's going to be letting you know what your new National Association of Realtors member number is. So watch for that email. And that was
Great. Wonderful. Great. I think if anyone else doesn't have anything else to contribute, I think we're good. Like I said, thanks to everyone. Thanks again, Meg, and look forward to seeing you next month for our Life in Indy presentation. So thank you. Have a great February.
Thank you.